And we are back live from IHR Manchester, still with that racket going on in the background. I've tried to have a word, but they don't seem to want to listen. In fact, it seems to be getting louder every time. I've got Ricky Doyle from Day One here with me. Ricky, you are the CEO and founder of Day One.
I am, thank you.
Details of which about what Day One are and how they could benefit you as a viewer of this podcast will be in the description. You want to talk about socially aware hiring?
Correct. I think it's a topic we probably don't address enough. So yeah, I'd love to share my thoughts on it and then see where it goes from there.
Cool. Let's define that first. What is it?
So from my perspective, I guess a lot of these things are subjective. So my definition of it is, look, if you look at small to medium-sized enterprises, I think we are all aware that we should have diverse teams in our organization, but not always sure how to attract that type of talent. So kind of being socially aware to the problem is one, acknowledging the problem exists, but then two, how do you overcome some of the barriers to having a wider, more diverse team, different thinking. And we were speaking just before the show, or before we restarted, was I think if you take most founders and most company owners, certainly owner-led, managing director type-led businesses, everyone understands the problem. The hard part is how do you change the narrative and
yeah, it's a combination of like kind of this is how we've always done it, and I don't know whether more diverse people would want to work for me.
Yeah.
I don't know where to start.
Absolutely.
I don't know how to do it.
And
I've always done it this way.
Absolutely, and I think when you start to delve into it, and you put up your own barriers, and I think the biggest problem with trying to be more creative is the fear of making a mistake.
Yeah.
And I remember one time in the previous startup I had, we were building some software just to illustrate this point, and we were building some software for non-sighted users on our websites, so for blind people. And I said to our development team, right, we need to do some testing of the software because obviously we need to make sure it works. So naturally we go down the safest path. They go, there's lots of consultancies out there and tools that we could use to prove our accessibility criteria.
I thought you were going to say we decided to close our eyes and see if we could.
We did the next best thing until one of the team suggested, why don't we actually approach the Royal National College of the Blind, because there's a group of people with some technology skills that could help out. And look, that's what I'm trying to emphasize is this, one is think differently, but two, the effort required to go and make that happen. So I love the idea. So what we did, we called the Royal National College of the Blind. We said, look, we'd love to come and do maybe a little presentation for your students. They had 5 or 6 technology students. And we've got this opportunity to come and do some testing with us. But my desire to do it far outweighed the effort that was involved. So I drove up and it was actually a great day. And I think certainly anyone leading a business or leading people, seeing different groups. Anyway, to fast forward the story, I go up there, do a chat, and I asked one of the students to join us. Anyway, he makes his way down, and I remember his first day. So I say to him, his name was Andrew. I said, Andrew, look, I don't know, you're going to have to break the ice here, because most people in the office are scared of making a mistake. What they don't want to say something wrong in front of you. They don't want to offend you in any way. And I think this extends to all walks of differences.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And he said to me, Ricky, leave it with me. I think I've got it. So I said, okay, great. Anyway, so we go to a team meeting, and we were small at the time. We had like 10 or 15 people. So we do our normal meeting and align the priorities for the week. And I introduced Andrew. I said, everyone, here's Andrew. He's going to be helping us with the accessibility testing that we've just gone through. We didn't want to go down the consultancy route, so Andrew's going to do it. He is non-sighted or partially sighted, I think he was. And over to you, Andrew. So Andrew says, okay, everyone, this is a little bit about my background. He says, but here's the story. If you see me crossing the road, please don't help me. I've crossed the road 1,000,000 times. If you see me in the canteen making a piece of toast, I don't need your help. I've made toast 100 times. And the third thing he said was, and if you can tell me a blind joke that I haven't heard before, I'll give you 10 quid. Everyone burst out laughing. And that small moment there, he went from Andrew, our non-sighted accessibility tester, to Andrew, our colleague who's here working with us. And it just took that moment to break the ice. And maybe it's imperative on both sides to have the bravery to get it out there, and then everyone knows where they were. So a long-winded answer to your question, but I think that's it. It's like being brave, but being aware, and then actually doing something about it, and not just talking about it. Because we'll always revert to the easiest thing. Don't have time, don't have money. You know, there's nothing wrong with the people we've hired for the last 5 years from this local area.
You know, you're totally right. I ran a recruitment agency before I started doing this full job. We had a business partner. We grew it to a team of 15, and time again we would get to a point where we'd want to hire, and time again we would consider hiring a remote person.
Yeah.
So we're based in Coventry, and a shit part of Coventry at that.
Yeah.
So our talent pool is a 5-mile radius of the shit part of Coventry. And then we're scratching our heads going, why is everyone so shit? Or like not suitable for us, right? We want some of the big billers that are working in Birmingham.
Yeah.
We want some of the big billers that are working, like travelling from Coventry to London. None of them want to work here. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Well, it's because of where we are and what we're doing. So we would toy with the idea of making a remote hire. And we would get right down to sort of final stage interview. The person's based in Manchester.
Yeah.
The person's based in London. The person's based in Bristol. And then we just go, no, it doesn't feel right, you know, and we never did it. And that's one of the many things that I sort of chalk down as to a contributor to the reason the business failed.
Yeah, right.
We refuse to adapt to a changing market.
Yeah.
And a changing employment landscape, right?
Yeah.
There are great people out there who don't look, smell, taste, behave, or represent what you think the best person for the job looks like.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they're not good for it.
Absolutely.
You've got to take that leap of faith.
It is, and it's a bravery that comes with that, and I think most of us are built with this inherent risk-averse mentality.
Yeah.
And those that sometimes take that leap of faith, I think are the benefactors of that. And in that particular case, you know, we had a great story to tell. We actually helped someone who would struggle to get a job otherwise, and we changed the narrative of those 10 or 15 people within our organization. And I think that's one of the key things. It's not just about making a difference in one organization, but it's making a difference to people's mindsets as well. And are you brave enough? Yeah, absolutely.
It's the butterfly effect of your actions that have then made other people go on. Is that, how many years ago was this?
This was pre-COVID, so it must have been 2018, 2019, something around there.
We're talking 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in that time, those people that were in that room would have gone off and told umpteen number of people that same story, making them feel more comfortable about the deaf person that's just been hired.
Absolutely.
Or the trans person that's just been hired. Or the person with a physical disability that's just been hired into their businesses.
Yeah.
And make them feel like, oh, well, no, actually, here's a way we could deal with this. It's just have a conversation,
trying.
introduce them. It's not. Yeah,
let's just not close the door and not have it. And I honestly believe that, and I'll re-emphasize this point, it's not through lack of desire. I don't believe it's lack of desire. In the same way you guys were looking for the talent because you knew you needed to. It's like when it comes to those sensitive areas, I guess it's that fear of making a mistake. And most of the people I've engaged with who may be perceived from a different walk of life or a different background, I think are far more resilient than you give them credit for. They would rather have the conversation, you know, whether it's out there early doors, then people skirt around the issues. That makes everyone more uncomfortable. And invariably, the person who's the minority in this situation, it feels kind of, I may as well just leave because it's easier for everyone else, as opposed to just being a little bit braver up front in a respectful way, because you don't have to do it in a negative way. It's just in that respectful way.
But that fear of failure is a funny one, right? Because it's sort of like, okay, you take my example of the remote hire. I would have this argument with my business partner all the time. we've made local hires and they fail.
Yeah.
So why is making a remote hire and it failing such a bad thing? Right?
Yeah. You're 100% right. And I think we funny enough, we just gone through a similar thing with, funny enough, a young lady who was had a disability. She actually reached out to us and she said, "Look, Ricky, contact me on LinkedIn. I love what you're doing at day one. I really want to be part of it." And funny enough, so she started working with us, and we found out actually she was doing 2 jobs at the same time, and your natural reaction, all of us certainly in business, you go, well, we now need to lock this down. Like, no, we need to improve our policy, we need to do our background checks. And then I just took a moment, I went, hold on one second, we're talking about an individual who maybe was misguided in their own judgment, but we can't affect the 99% who are all on board and doing the right things for us. So
never happened since before then.
Exactly.
Why now change the policy based on one thing?
Yeah, and I guess it's that mindset of again, so if I make a mistake and go back to this kind of more socially aware organization when it comes to hiring, I think it's accepting that you may make a mistake. And as long as you're improving, and I think this is for most of us in any walk of life, as long as we are trying with the right intent to improve and move forward, that's all we can ask for. And we do it in a respectful way, and we see each other. I think making a mistake is not the problem. It's probably a bigger part is not making the mistake and doing nothing.
Yeah. Or the not learning from that mistake, right?
Correct.
That's a really funny example, because actually, you wouldn't say, "Oh, I hired this deaf person, and they were great, best hire I ever made. So now, from this point onwards, I'm only exclusively hiring deaf people."
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? You wouldn't do that.
No, we wouldn't, yeah.
So, in the same respect, you made a bad hire, it didn't work out, you don't change your policy because of that, unless there's a real fundamental need to do so.
Yeah.
Right?
And I feel this narrative, and I hear it a lot around bad hire as well, is an interesting thing, because I think certainly people who are doing the hiring become so risk averse and scared of making this bad hire. So in actual fact,
I don't want to be the guy that made a bad hire. I want that on my head.
I heard this great thing that remember the hiring managers are judged by their retention policies and this retention metric. So what you do is you just lock everything down. So I imagine we flipped it on our head and said, okay, well, instead of worrying about the cost of a bad hire, what's the value of a good hire?
Yeah.
Because if you look at it in that narrative, now it opens up the whole field again. The good hire might not be someone you expect. You've got to look a little bit further afield, but what the impact they could have on your business. And I feel that's a much more positive approach than trying to go on the guardrails of making a bad hire, tightening policy down that no one could do anything. But look, maybe also I'm the outlier to many of these things, but if we don't talk about it like, with what you guys are doing here, if we can affect one other person who maybe goes, you know what?
Just give someone something to think about, nothing more, right?
And that's all we're asking, is that how do people think about it in a different way, and whether we can action it or whether we can't, who knows? The more we talk about it, the more chance we've got of impacting it in the future.
We are to take that risk, and do you know what? Hey, it might be the best thing you ever did.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, in my experience, you are pleasantly surprised with the people you take a risk on, irrespective of background or.
Do you know why though? That's because you're a product of a person taking a risk on you.
Quite possibly, and that's what I'm saying.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I'm a risk taker in business because for me, that was key. The reason I'm where I am is because I took the risks and it paid off.
Yeah.
So when I hire people that are unconventional, not the normal hire, because I have more faith in someone's ability and potential than I do in their experience.
Yeah, hire for potential, I think, is huge. So tell me then, what was that final barrier? Why didn't you take on the remote person? So if you are a risk taker, what was the reason why?
My business partner.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Purely because he looked after the day-to-day running of it.
Right, okay.
And so I was the sort of motivator of the team, the commercial, the sort of sales front of the business.
Yeah.
And he was the the people person, the
Got
people
it.
manager.
Yeah.
I hated the managing people. Hated it.
Yeah.
You know, I can't on the one hand sit there and have a laugh with you and then be like, right, we need to go do one-to-one now. Now I'm going to tell you. Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
The one time we did have a remote hire, he was our most performing consultant.
Oh wow. Okay.
But he was also the one that clashed with my business partner the most because my business partner would constantly check in on him. What are you doing? Where are you?
Right.
Why? You sound like you're in the car. Where are you going?
Yeah. Are you on the golf course?
Hey, he's putting money on the board.
Yeah, 100%.
Fucking go on the golf course. I want people. When I hire, and I have a freelancer that does my video editing, I'm hiring at the moment, going through the process at the moment. Met a really interesting chap in South Africa.
Yeah.
Young, like, sort of got his head switched on, very little experience. And I want you to work as little as possible.
Yeah.
You will have your tasks that you need to get done that week. Now, if you get that done in 3 days, go enjoy your 2 days on the golf course.
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah. I think it's a tough mindset for people to get their head around on that because, of course, if you've got an extra 2 days, then we can do a little bit more. But the reality is finding that balance.
We could do.
Yeah.
But if I'm not willing to do a little bit more, I can't expect him to or her to.
Yeah.
What?
No, and you're right. And look, sales, the one thing with sales is relatively straightforward. Money on the board, if you're doing your quota in a day, then so be it. Yeah. But I think companies are changing, and I think when you look around, certainly earlier stage companies now, I think the blend between work-life balance is there. You know, we do a 4-day week once a month, which is that most people tend to work a little bit extra, and not through request, just because they believe in it.
To get their stuff done, and they're like,
so have that one day to go to the bank and all these life things that we have to take care
I'm
of.
only causing myself more problems if I don't get everything done this week, and then next week I've got my week's work to do, and then some.
Correct. Yeah. So I think being again, even those type of things goes back to our conversation is. It's a bravery to be different and change and have a go, fail. Look, that's how we've all learned. How do we learn to walk? We tried to stand up, we stumbled, we got up, we go again. We didn't just go
until we got it right.
Yeah. And that's the only way I think we can approach these things.
Well, I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat.
Thank you.
So much, Ricky.
Thank you.
Honestly.
Really appreciate it too.
Guys, if you want to know more about Day One, more about Ricky, connect with him and everything else, the links to their website, their LinkedIn page, and his LinkedIn page will be in the description and comments below. They've started again, so I'll put it here. Thank you for listening. See you again next time.